to our 12th annual Bloomington Speech Showcase. My name is Scott Sealing, and this is my 20th year as the head coach at the Jefferson team, and my 10th year as the head coach of the Kennedy team. This year, our assistant coaches were Rick Holly, Toby Tremaine, and Arthur Harris. Tonight, our students will be performing as one Bloomington team. We decided to start this showcase to give students the opportunity to perform their speeches in an auditorium setting and to give family and friends the opportunity to see what speech is really about. I'm especially excited tonight to announce that we have 4 qualifiers to a national tournament on this year's team. They're seniors Amelia Miller, Bella Fawn, and Abigail Larson in oratory, and Claire Miller in informative. They qualified for the National Individual Events Tournament of Champions in May in Omaha, Nebraska. We know that you'll enjoy the speeches tonight with a mix of funny and serious pieces, so sit back and enjoy the performances, and let me turn it over to the stars of the show, the students.
Hi, my name is Amelia Miller, and I'm one of the speech team captains. Tonight, we are showcasing 7 of our top speakers, as well as showing brief excerpts from many of our other speakers. You will see a variety of categories and styles, from speeches written by students to performances of humorous and dramatic literature.
Hi, my name is Bella Fawn, and I'm one of the speech captains as well. Tryouts for the regular team were held in December, and we ended up with over 30 students competing from January to March on this year's team. Last weekend, some of our team members competed in the Southern Minnesota District Speech Tournament through the National Speech and Debate Association.
Hi, my name is Joya Donane, and I'm another speech team captain. At the national qualifying tournament last weekend, 4 students advanced to the second day of competition. Seniors Bella Fawn and Abigail Larson advanced to semifinals in original oratory. Senior Claire Miller advanced to the semifinals in informative, and junior Naima Mohammed advanced to the semifinals in program oral interp.
My name is Claire Miller, and I am the last speech team captain. On Thursday, March 21st, our team will compete in the 6AA section tournament hosted at ECU High School. The top 3 students in each category at this tournament will qualify for the MSHSL State Speech Tournament on April 13th at Wayzata High School. I'm sure you will see some very talented speakers tonight, and we hope to continue the showcase each year. Thank you again for coming. We will start tonight's showcase with senior Abigail Larson, delivering her original oratory entitled Would You Rather, followed by excerpts from Asma Abdurrahman, Chase Brown, and Jamie Melville.
The best of us have been there. Answering questions is hard. It's easy to get things wrong sometimes. And no, I'm not talking about tests. I'm talking about would you rather. Whenever I play would you rather with my friends, it starts out fine. You know, would you rather be bit by 20 spiders or 20 mosquitoes? Easy. Who doesn't want to be Spider-Man? But then it just gets hard. People start asking the real questions. Like, would you rather eat a bucket of hair or drink a bucket of spit? I know. Ew. Okay, would you rather is just a fun game. But our contemporary tendency to treat our lives like rounds of would you rather is neither fun nor a game. The fallacy of the false dilemma, also known as the either-or fallacy, is a lot like a game of would you rather. It takes a complex, multidimensional issue and breaks it down into 2 one-dimensional solutions, oversimplifying matters and wrongly ignoring middle ground. A game of would you rather is harmless, but a false dilemma is not. It leaves us divided, confused, and ultimately making decisions and sacrifices that we don't actually have to make. And they're almost everywhere. From our treatment of problems to our treatment of people, we are obsessed with this fallacy. And our use of it doesn't go without consequences. According to British psychologist and Oxford professor Neil Burton, it leaves us with a distinctly distorted picture of reality. And this is my main concern. If we never see the whole picture, how can we come up with workable solutions to the issues that we face? So today, First, let's analyze how we use false dilemmas when it comes to our treatment of problems. And second, of people. Then let's examine the harms before finding some real solutions. So, would you rather be in PA or interp? Because if you're a PA kid, great. If you're an interp kid, my speech coach told me to stay away from people on crack. I'm kidding. PA and interp are both great, and they're not mutually exclusive options. You can do both. But just like my last question, we frequently use false dilemmas when it comes to addressing questions and problems. On a national scale, our political rhetoric is full of it. For example, after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, when George Bush told the world, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists, he certainly did appeal to the patriotism and the pain of our country. But he didn't give a comprehensive overview of the actions that other nations could take. Certainly, the 9/11 terrorist attacks were horrifying. But Bush's statement suggests that if the terrorists were wrong, then the response of the United States was right. Was it right when it directly resulted in the deaths of thousands of innocent civilians in the Middle East? This false dilemma, termed the Bush disjunction, shaped how we responded to terrorism at the beginning of the 21st century. 4 years after the attack, journalist Paul Keeling wrote, "The terms of the disjunction place a virtual gag order on trying to think coherently about terrorism. We are only invited to react to events and choose sides." As I see it, this was an incredibly limited scope of action for such a critical issue. And it's not just Bush using these dilemmas. It's Obama, it's Trump, it's our Congress. It's how we talk about issues from immigration to gun control. And, according to author Scott Berkune, it's our political system. Insisting that people are either Democrats or Republicans when so many people have beliefs that fall into both categories is a false dilemma. And our use of such dichotomies when it comes to politics is disappointing. But when it comes to people, it's just wrong. It's that us versus them mentality that we see almost everywhere, from our views of immigrants to people of opposing political beliefs. We fall for false dilemmas when we group people into specific and opposing categories. And perhaps the most devastating example of this, although by no means the only example, is how we label people as being either good or bad, never in between. And this particularly affects criminals. Emily Baxter, lawyer and author of the 2017 book, We Are All Criminals, outlines the struggles that convicted criminals face in their day-to-day lives. The people she works with have lost their homes, their jobs, the respect of their family, and their sense of self. Sometimes for crimes as minor as petty theft. But they're criminals, they deserve it, right? Not always. As Baxter states, 1 in 4 people has a criminal record, but 4 in 4 have a criminal history. We have all done something wrong, whether it's speeding, jaywalking, stealing. And sometimes the only thing separating us from a convicted criminal is whether or not we got caught. And our constant need to segregate people based on the sole existence of a criminal record is simply a false dilemma. Not all criminals are inherently bad people, and not everybody else is good. And the weight of such a mentality can be suffocating. One of the people Baxter describes in her book is a young man named Anthony. When Anthony first sought Baxter's help, he was distraught. His face was so grave that Baxter expected to see accounts of assault, violent robbery, or fraud on his record. But all she saw was a minor theft. Something so easy for Baxter to deal with as a lawyer, but so devastating for Anthony, who lost his job and the respect of his family. So devastating that he had nearly tried to kill himself. In a world that relies so heavily on an us versus them dilemma, Anthony's criminal status meant that he was one of them. not one of us. And there are so many us versus thems, liberals versus conservatives, immigrants versus citizens, criminals versus everybody else. And it doesn't just deny us middle ground, but as author Philip S. Powell states, it denies the possibility that when two sides disagree, they might still have more in common based on what they share than what divides them. And false dilemmas keep us from thinking critically. According to a 2017 Psychology Today article by Mark Baer, when such binary and polarized thinking occurs, the appeal to rational, intellectual arguments is fruitless. No wonder we can't agree on anything these days. We can't even find the middle ground. And it's hurting our political system. It's hurting our relationships. And it's hurting us. So, would you rather find a solution, or should I just leave? I'm kidding, again. I can't stop people from being exposed to false dilemmas. They're just too prevalent. But I can provide some helpful tips for how to overcome them. Our first step is staying alert. Don't just accept seemingly black and white situations as they are. Stop and ask why. Psychiatrist Melissa Welby describes that the most important step in overcoming such dichotomous thought is recognizing inflexible and rigid thinking. So question what you hear. There should be some terms that tip you off. If you hear somebody pose something as being an either-or scenario, be skeptical. Simple words like us or them and good or bad frequently break down complex situations into simple false dilemmas. If you're having a hard time identifying such a dilemma, Dr. Welby suggests that you should actually sit down and draw out a continuum to place your thoughts on. And second, something that comes hand in hand with identifying such a dilemma, learn how to think critically. Neuroscientist and professor at Texas A&M University, William Clem, outlines specific strategies to improve your critical thinking. First, be aware of your own thoughts. Learn how to focus, but most importantly, identify what is missing. The very essence of a false dilemma is that the middle ground isn't there. If you can focus in and figure out what that middle ground is, you're a lot less likely to fall for such a dilemma. So I've learned a lot about would you rather in the past 10 minutes. I've learned some good things, some gross things, but mostly I've learned that would you rather is a party game, not a lifestyle. So when it comes to playing the would you rather game of the false dilemma, I just rather not play. What would you rather?
Hi, my name is Chase Brown, and I'm an original oratory. Growing up as a middle child and the only girl in my family, I have found some interesting means of entertaining myself, using my two brothers. Some of the most memorable moments include my acts of showmanship. My brothers and I would perform plays and concerts and then put them on for my parents. And on one such occasion, I forced my brothers to put on a Black Eyed Peas mini concert. The day of the performance, we geared up with our microphones that suspiciously resembled Pringle containers, and my parents dubbed it great. But when did they not? Ever the self-critic, I noticed that my brothers didn't share the enthusiasm that I held for singing and performing. So I knew when it came down to more important announcements, my brother's lack of enthusiasm was going to be repeated. One day, I decided it was time for me to admit to my brothers that I was going to call myself a feminist. My brothers responded to what I had said in a tone Chimamanda Adichie described in her book, a tone which someone would say, "You are a supporter of terrorism." Now, initially I was angered at my brother's dislike for my choice of title, but now that I'm older, I realize my brother's dislike for feminism was quite like their dislike for singing and acting. Just like singing and acting, it wasn't something that called to my brothers. Feminism, a fight they considered for women's rights, didn't seem all that applicable. And my brothers are not the only ones that feel this way. Women are at the forefront of these movements fighting for gender equality. But we also need to take the issues that men face into consideration as they become more and more publicized. So, let's gain some gender equality by taking the issue to the stage.
Hello, my name is Jamie Melville, and I'm in storytelling, which is a draw and interpretation category, and interpretation occasionally involves a little more mobility gathered from how the elephant and the whale were tricked when the rabbit has just been learning that the elephant and the whale have been plotting something interesting.
They're gonna do what? They're gonna tax us just because they're bigger than we are? That is so not fair. Grandpa, what do you think we should do about this? Well, okay. Well, you know what? I have an idea. I need a rope. Okay, I guess. Mr. Elephant! Mr. Elephant, sir!
Little, Winky's little, yeah.
Mr. Elephant, sir, I have a cow, and it's stuck in a marsh over there. And you would just be helping me out so much and being so nice to such a little animal like me if you could take the end of this rope, and I'll catch the other end of the cow, and you can pull her out of the marsh and help me. Would you do that for me? Great, good, kind, amazing, strong, powerful Mr. Elephant?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Mr. Whale? Mr. Whale?
What?
Mr. Whale, I have a dilemma. My cow is stuck on land, and could you please help me get her out?
Yeah, I could do that. I'm really strong, so I can go to that.
Oh, okay, cool. So you just take the end of the rope, and then when I tell you, you can pull on one end, and the cow will just come out as easy as pie. Okay, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, pull!
Our next speaker is Bella.
I'm going to start this off a little bit unorthodox with a children's song, so feel free to clap along if you know it. If you're struggling with your health bills, clap your hands. If you can't afford a good education, clap your hands. If you're struggling with finances and your economy is slowing and your country's struggling with crippling economic inequality, clap your hands. According to the CIA World Factbook, the USA is ranked at the 30th percentile in global income inequality. The top 0.1% take in 188 times the bottom 90%. This comes with extreme poverty and extreme wealth, and potentially devastating consequences. Which brings us to today's question. How much of a threat is economic inequality to the United States? The answer is that it's one of our biggest problems, and for 3 key reasons. First, because of its effects on health. Second, because of its effects on education. And finally, because of its effects on the economy as a whole. So if you're ready to learn some more about this topic, clap your hands. Economic inequality takes a devastating toll on the health of the less wealthy. According to the Economic Policy Institute in 2014, 60 million people, including 15 million children, rely on the wages of minimum wage workers. These people can't afford the deductibles required for regular doctor visits, means they can't afford preventive care and rely instead on emergency services or healthcare. This seems fine, but in the long run, preventive care is actually cheaper. For example, being able to pay for smaller amounts of insulin in the long run can mean avoiding a hospital trip for diabetic shock in the long run. Ultimately, this creates a self-feeding loop. When people are unable to afford preventive care, they must instead rely on emergency services, which draw them deeper into debt, and preventive care is even less affordable. This exacerbates the economic inequality, according to The Atlantic on January 2018. In other words, the economic inequality that creates this problem in the first place makes the problem endure in the long run. And in addition, this problem affects all of us because the unpaid costs of healthcare that hospitals are required to provide are eventually swallowed up by the government, meaning that ultimately the people who can't afford healthcare wind up being the ones paying for it. So it's a lose-lose for everyone. But economic inequality takes a toll in other areas, including education. We've always seen education as a tool for economic mobility, a way to climb up the income ladder. However, the American Sociological Review on May 2018 explains that in states where income inequality has grown the most, education disparity has likewise increased. Simply put, children from high and middle income households do better. But why? It's because the parents of these households have the resources to invest in their children's educations, whether that's through tutoring or art gallery and museum visits or summer camps. And they also have enough time to spend to learn, read, and do homework with their children. Meanwhile, their lower income counterparts don't have the extra disposable income to spend on these. And they also, the demands of a high-hour, low-paying job is they don't have as much time to teach their children. In addition, schools in low-income areas often lack qualified teachers, and when combined with the fact that low-income parents often have less time to spend with their children, this exacerbates the effect. In addition, with the onset of the digital age, economic inequality comes to the forefront of education. A 2018 Pew Research Center report found that 1/5 of children can't complete their homework nightly due to a lack of or inadequate internet access. Although some districts, including our own, have made strides towards providing internet access for all students, not every district can or has. And as schools increasingly turn towards online curriculum, students without the ability to pay for high-speed internet will ultimately be left behind. Education disparity affects us all. It means we'll see a decrease in inventors, a decrease in problem solvers, and a decrease in progress. In addition, we'll see lower productivity, stagnating GDP growth, and a decrease in the overall quality of life. However, economic inequality also affects the economy as a whole. A 2014 Forbes article explains that required for economic growth is a lot of people spending a lot of money. But when a lot of that wealth is gathered in the hands of the wealthy, simply put, the top of the ladder can't make up for the lack of spending by the bottom 40%. A 2018 Market Watch article explains that although we've seen a strong labor market and corporate America has seen booming economic growth, we've seen little economic growth. This is because, again, much of the wealth is being gathered in the hands of the wealthy, instead of being spread towards the bottom 40% who currently lack disposable income. And as a result, that money isn't being cycled back into the economy to further economic growth. Economic growth is vital to improving the quality of life in America. It means that we have increased money for research and technological development. We also have more time for leisure, and we also have more money to spend on all of this. When we lack economic growth, that's when we start to stagnate and we lose progress as a whole. So although it seems like economic inequality is something that affects only the poor, it's actually an issue that affects us all, and is one of America's greatest threats due to its ramifications in health, education, and the economy as a whole. But if we find some solutions, we can get some spending going, the economy starts growing, and we'll see a brighter future in the end.
My name is Joya Donane, and I will be doing my program oral interp titled My Country, My Country? So I'm driving down the street with my 4-year-old nephew. He's knocking back a juice box. He smiles, looks out the window, spots a cop car, drops in his seat and says, "Oh man, 5-0, we got it." Get up, I yell at him. In this car, in this family, we are not afraid of the law. I wonder if you can hear the uncertainty in my voice. We both know the truth is far more complex than we know how. I tell him, be strong, be smart, know your laws, be aware of how quickly your hand moves the pocket for wallet or ID. We are not afraid of the law. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America under broad stripes and bright stars. I wonder if he can hear the uncertainty in my voice. Since the time of America's founding, Black Americans have struggled with the idea of patriotism. And America has struggled to have the conversation as of why. Maybe it's time we do.
Hi, I'm Olivia Dudziak. I'm in extemporaneous reading, and I will be reading part of The Sound of Summer Running. Late that night, going home from the show with his mother and father and his brother Tom, Douglas saw the tennis shoes in the bright store window. He glanced quickly away, but his ankles were seized, his feet suspended, then rushed. The earth spun, the shop awning slammed their canvas wings overhead with the thrust of his body running. His mother and father and brother walked quietly on both sides of him. Douglas walked backward, watching the tennis shoes in the midnight window left behind. It was a nice movie, said Mother. Douglas murmured. It was. It was June, and long past time for buying the special shoes that were quiet as a summer rain falling on the walls. June and the earth full of raw power and everything everywhere in motion. The grass was still pouring in from the country, surrounding the sidewalks, stranding the houses. Any moment, the town would capsize, go down and leave not a stir in the clover and weeds. And here Douglas stood, trapped on the dead cement in the red brick streets, hardly able to move. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luke Ludden,
I'm Emily Gopper.
and we're in discussion. So discussion is kind of that between PA and inter, and it's kind of neat if you want to do both. Discussion is you're given a task and you have to accomplish it with a team, with other team members and the group. In discussion, you are ranked on how well and effective you accomplish this task. Now Emma's going to talk to you about what the theme of this year is and what we've overall been discussing about.
The theme this year is social media and traditional media's effect on the population. From privacy to online shaming to various other overarching topics, it's basically kind of just the general gist of social media and traditional media's effect on the public, from individuals to organizations.
And that's an overview of discussion.
Next, we'll have senior speaker Claire Miller performing her informative speech titled What's in a Name, followed with an excerpt from the Henson Brothers. When I was a teenager, there was one place I always had to stop when I went to the mall. Claire's had every rainbow color novelty my 9-year-old heart desired. And while I now realize that it's just a store filled with cheaply made hair accessories, cheesy friendship necklaces, and makeup that is sure to give you a rash, the reason I love Claire's so much has to do with something that has defined me since the day I was born. My name, Claire. And while we may not all have our own personal accessory shops, we all do have names that have shaped our identities since before we could even speak. So today, let's shop around to see how the practice of naming began. Then let's take a few perspectives off the shelf and consider how our names impact our identities. Finally, let's check out the way that names are significant within different cultures. Now, try to imagine a world without names, or Claire's. Luckily, ever since there have been people, there have been names. According to a History Center article, one of the first ever written names was given in 3200 BC to the Egyptian king Ir-or, who put his own personal hieroglyph in a box to indicate his kingly status. And according to the Society for Creative Anachronism, around the world, early names were often descriptive, such as the Gaelic name of Conan, which means wolf, or the Hebrew name of Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. As time went on, words would fall out of use in a language while the name remained. That's why many names have meanings that aren't literal. For example, my name means bright. But if I described my future as Claire, you'd probably be a little confused. As time went on, cultures would reuse names instead of always creating new ones. To avoid potential awkward mix-ups, the last name was introduced. This descriptive name was given to one individual and then passed down from generation to generation. What are called patronymic names were based on the name of someone's father, such as the last name of John, son. While what are called toponymic names were based off of a location, usually near a person's home, such as the last name of Hill. Occupation names were based off of what someone did. My last name is Miller, meaning that someone in my lineage worked in a grain mill. And the love of bread has been passed down from generation to generation. As time went on, these naming practices spread all over Europe, with last names being created in every language. Today, because of globalization and immigration, we have last names here in America ranging from A to Zviek. But what about middle names? Well, according to a 2016 Time magazine article, the practice of giving middle names that we're familiar with started in Italy in the 13th century and eventually spread to other European nations. Originally, it was just a way for aristocrats to show their status. But today, it's a way for us ordinary folk to change our identities throughout our lives or to carry on a family name. So, if you want to honor your beloved grandmother, Bertha, but you don't want to torture your child, maybe you should consider it as a middle name. So, what's in a name? Juliet famously pondered in the 9th grade English class classic, Romeo and Juliet. Well, I do agree that a feud over teenage lovers' family names is a little 15th century. If you think about it, our names are the most important word in the world to each of us. They're how people gain our attention and what differentiates us from others. But how do our names impact the way others perceive us? Well, have you ever heard someone's name, then met them, and realized it was a perfect fit? Well, according to a study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, people are able to match faces with names at a better rate than random chance. See, as we go throughout our lives, we create a stereotype around a name, based on what we see in movies, read in books, and from personal experiences. As soon as we meet someone, we project our expectations onto them. And as people begin to understand what society expects of them, they'll often change their personality and even their physical appearance to match these expectations. For example, the way a name sounds can impact what we think it means. Psychologist German Wolfgang Kohler showed his subjects these two images and asked them to label one as Maluma and one as a taquette. Now, if I were to put taquette here, it just feels wrong, right? Taquette sounds sharp and jagged, leading us connected with this image, while Maluma sounds round and soft, leading us connected with this image. See how something as basic as the way a word sounds impacts our perception of its meaning? And this phenomenon doesn't only apply to shapes. For women in particular, the way their name sounds can impact what they choose to study. Researcher David Figelow found that women with more feminine-sounding names, marked by soft consonant sounds and greater lengths, such as the name Elizabeth, were more likely to go to the humanities and less likely to study math and science than women with more masculine names, such as Alex. Even something as seemingly unimpactful as the first letter of someone's name can impact their success. A 2017 BBC article describes how academics with last names earlier in the alphabet are more likely to work in prestigious departments or to receive Nobel Prizes. See, as soon as we step into kindergarten, we find our place in the alphabetical line. Students with last names closer to A are more likely to sit in the front of the room, be called on first, or just receive more attention from their teachers. Academics with earlier surnames are more likely to be listed first or cited for their research and writings. In fact, when 15,000 individuals were asked to rate their own levels of success, those with surnames towards the front of the alphabet were more likely to perceive themselves as successful. Our names are central to the very core of who we are, and how other people use them, whether we realize it or not, impacts our expectations and understandings of ourselves and our potential. And while names do impact us individually, we tend to think of naming practices as universal. I mean, when I was growing up in Russia, Claire's was still Claire's at my local shopping mall. However, names and their significance vary all around the world. For example, in Spanish-speaking cultures, individuals have two surnames, with the first coming from the mother and the second coming from the father. Or take Arabic-speaking Muslim nations, where individuals have their own personal names followed by their father's and grandfather's personal names. Sons may be named after their paternal grandfather, meaning it is not uncommon for people to have the same first and what is perceived as last name. All too often, European-style naming practices are assumed to be the norm, and anything outside of this is seen as atypical, impractical, or wrong. The way that documentation and identification are used here in the United States often only allows for the use of European-style naming practices. However, taking the time to learn how to pronounce someone's name and how to use it properly is important in honoring their culture and identity. Even here in the United States, names play an important role in cultural heritage, with one example being the African American community. A 2008 Salon article describes how during the 1960s, the Black Power movement inspired many African Americans to adopt unique names, pay homage to their African heritage. Today, 1/3 of African American girls have names that belong to no one else in their state. But while names have given Black men and women a unique link to their heritage, years of bias and racism here in the United States have turned names into a stigma rather than a statement. A 2016 study from the journal Evolution and Human Behavior describes how names more typical of African American or Latino men, such as Darnell or Juan, are more likely to be associated with violence. Prestige and success were attributed to historically white names, such as Connor. This can have lifelong implications, especially in the job market. In a 2004 study from the American Economic Association, thousands of resumes were sent to job openings in Boston and Chicago. These resumes were randomly assigned either a historically white or historically Black sounding name. And those with white sounding names were 50% more likely to receive a call back. Our preconceptions of race run so deep that they impact our impressions of individuals before we even have the chance to interact. Names have turned from a personal calling card into a liability for many, as they seek to make a name for themselves in the face of decades of systematic racism. Your name is so much more than a name. It's part of your story, it's part of your identity, and it's part of a wider cultural narrative. And while I may have grown out of shopping at Claire's, we should never grow out of taking the time to learn someone's name and using it to show that they matter. Today, we looked at the history of names, how names impact our identity, and how names are an important part of diversity here in the United States and around the world. As you can see, names mean something different for everyone. So, what's in your name?
We are Scott and Eric Ensign and are
Duo interpretation.
Thank you. What is duo interpretation? Well, it's an interpretation of a piece.
Two people.
Yes, little do people understand the power of two. Anyway, our piece is basically Batman from, the corny 60s TV show. We take you to the abandoned power plant where the evil villain is scheming his next plot. This is it, chum. We may be in for the fight of our lives.
Hey, Baz! More man! So what's your game, Greasy?
Well, it's a game we dark underworld type spectacle. Take over the world! In which I would like to play, but unfortunately, dead. No. Never! Fine. Boy.
Good.
Good. Sweet.
Sweet.
Sweet. Wait, Yellow Jacket. It seems that Bull Man is not acting alone.
Wait.
portray that evil scoundrel here, but he has to be evil, 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 evil!
Ha 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 ha! The Golden Pharaoh!
Our next speaker is Junior Jay Schroeder, delivering his dramatic piece entitled My Son Daniel, followed by an excerpt from Ella Jones with her informative.
All men dream of one day having a son. I was no exception, and I was lucky. A year after I got married to the love of my life, we had a son. Daniel. I remember when my son Daniel was just a boy. He was such a handsome little boy, mainly because he takes after his papa. All the girls loved my Daniel. What can I say? I can't help but make a handsome son. And trust me, the word handsome doesn't apply to his mama's side of the family. But don't tell her I said that. I always thought that my son would tell me that I was supposed to tell him I loved him. Daniel would always tell me, I love you, Papa. And I would always smile. I don't know why I never said, I love you too, son, or I'm so proud to be your Papa. And I will always love you. I don't know. Maybe that's why Daniel never felt he could tell me he was gay. Few would argue the undeniable bond between a father and his son. But what happens when a son doesn't feel comfortable telling his father who he really is? Unfortunately, this is all too often the truth for LGBTQ teens. According to the True Colors Fund, 40% of homeless teens identify as members of the LGBTQ community, most of whom are homeless due to family rejection. In this selection, we meet a father that truly wants to know who his son really is. My Son Daniel, by Manuel Montez. As Daniel was growing up, I always told him I wanted him to grow up to be a good man, find a good girl like his mama, and give me lots of grandbabies. If I had known Danny was gay, or he would have told me he was gay, I would have said, son, I want you to grow up to be a good man. Find a good guy to spend your life with, and still find a way to give me lots of grandbabies. What can I say? I just want some grandbabies. But I had no idea Daniel was gay. I have to admit, it did cross my mind a few times. You know, Daniel was always obsessed with those singers, Madonna and Lady Go-Go, but I just thought he liked strong-minded women. Strong-minded women that wear lots of makeup, just like his mama. I'm joking. Don't tell her I said that. I just kept thinking, my son's gotta be like me, his old man. And he thinks all ladies are so beautiful. I just kept thinking, my son's gotta be like me. And he thinks all women are so beautiful, little, big, tall, and skinny, or short and round, just like his mama. Don't tell her I said that. I just kept thinking, there's no way my son is gay, right? There's no way. He likes too many girls. He likes too many girls and he can't pick just one. But I was wrong. I was wrong because I didn't listen to what my heart was telling me. You should always, always listen to the heart. The heart, it never lies. I guess I always knew that Daniel was not the macho guy I hoped he would be. He was sensitive, maybe too sensitive at times. I don't know. I just know I loved my son. I loved my Daniel. I just couldn't tell him. There was no doubt about whether my son was gay or not the morning his mom and I opened the front door to see a police officer standing on our front steps. I will never forget that day. It was the morning of June 12th, 2016. The officer asked us if we had a son named Daniel. My wife, she just started crying hysterically the second the officer said Daniel's name. I guess she knew. But I didn't know. I guess I'd assumed there had been some sort of car accident. Was Daniel okay? Where did they take him? Was he at the hospital? So many questions started flooding my mind that I barely heard what the officer said next. There had been a mass shooting at the local nightclub, the Pulse. Once I heard the name of that nightclub, I had the answer to the question that had been tormenting me all those years. Now I knew. My son was gay. The officer told me that when the man opened fire at the club, he started shooting as many people as he could. That there were dozens wounded and dozens killed. And then he said that we were one of the lucky ones. That Daniel, my Daniel, was one of the ones wounded. He then escorted us to the hospital. As we walk into the ICU, I see one of Daniel's friends in the lobby. He says that when the man opened fire at the club, Daniel got hit twice, once in the shoulder, and the other bullet punctured through one of his lungs. He said that luckily, they were near the restroom. So he pulled Daniel into the restroom until help could arrive. We thanked him for saving our son's life, and then walked into Daniel's room. Daniel was hooked up to all sorts of monitors. He was unconscious. And as I'm looking down at my son, I take his hand and hold it in mine and ask, Daniel, why didn't you ever tell me you were gay? It wouldn't have made any difference to me and your mama. Why couldn't you just tell us? And as I'm holding my son's hand in mine, I feel his pulse start to slow down, and then it just stopped. One of the monitors sent an alarm, and a doctor and a couple of nurses rushed into the room and ushered us out. And as I'm standing outside Daniel's room, I look back at my son and tell him the thing that I could never tell him when he was alive. I love you, Daniel. I love you, son. You know I do.
Hi, I'm Ella Jones, and I'll be performing the intro to my informative speech, There's No Place Like Mars. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. When I was a little girl, Star Trek was my favorite show. My dad and I would have Friday night movie nights where we'd order takeout and watch episodes of the original series. I'm pretty sure this is the reason why I was such a nerd as a little kid. I loved anything about space. I even had one of those Target comforters, you know, the ones with an astronaut on them. As I grew up, reading and watching sci-fi transitioned into a love of learning anything about space. Cosmos became my new favorite show, and I read every single one of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan's books. Even now, I love hearing about new discoveries in astronomy and astrophysics and following NASA updates on various rovers and missions. One of those future missions might sound a little bit like science fiction to you, but scientists are currently working on a way to get humans to Mars. So today, let's find out the why, when, and how about Mars colonization. First, we'll board the Enterprise in looking at why humans might consider putting colonies on Mars. Then, we'll jump to warp speed and find out how Mars colonization could be possible. And finally, we'll beam down and talk about the challenges and implications of life as a Martian.
Our next speaker is Amelia Miller, delivering her original oratory entitled Help, followed by an excerpt from Angela Sitt.
My favorite part about having a twin sister is that I have a built-in personal assistant. Who needs Alexa or Siri when you can have an actual person that doesn't make fun of you when you ask it what day of the week it is? Or start creepily laughing in the middle of the night, or accidentally order 25 copies of Space Jam. Not that I know anything about that from personal experience. I mean, I help my twin sister with everything. I braid her hair, help pick out outfits for her to wear on dates, and I even co-starred with her in the best duo of all time. Well, at least according to our mom, she makes me breakfast, drives me around when I'm too lazy to, and is always there when I need to talk. I think I find it so easy to ask my sister for help because I'm basically just asking myself. The thing is, many of us struggle to reach out to those closest to us when we need something. It might be because as kids, we're praised when we can do things all by ourselves. Or as teenagers, we're encouraged to become independent almost overnight when we go to college. Our society is obsessed with self-sufficiency. We love SoundCloud rappers, startups, and self-made billionaires who became successful without relying on others. Asking for help is seen as a sign of weakness in today's world. Because of this, situations tend to spiral out of control because we're unwilling to ask others with resources and experience to help us. But how do we learn to ask for a little help from our friends? First, let's use our twin telepathy to figure out why our society encourages self-help but discourages asking for help. Next, let's see why not asking for help can cause your trouble to double, before finally pairing up to see how we can get better at reaching out. While being a twin is great 99% of the time, I would be lying if I said that my sister and I never got into disagreements. For example, sometimes the request for a simple favor like grabbing my phone charger can be met with the response of, well, why don't you do it yourself? The thing is, the definition of help is making it easier for someone else to do something by offering one services or resources. One of the most important parts of this definition is that there are two people involved in the encounter. But my sister and our society seems to have forgotten this. According to therapist and author Matthew Jones, the self-help industry is worth nearly $11 billion. And according to author Joel Kahn, the do-it-yourself industry is worth nearly $14 billion. And this isn't a new phenomenon. Since the founding of the United States, the ideal American has been a pioneer, a trailblazer, someone who builds a life for themselves from scratch. From birth to adulthood, from fairy tales to Fox News, this expectation of individual achievement is etched into our minds. And while most of us aren't building our own houses or catching our own possum for dinner, we still prefer to do things on our own. This, combined with our obsession with saving time and money, has created a world where you can do almost anything by yourself. You can buy furniture that you assemble at home. Online classes are becoming more and more popular across the country, and selfies are still all the rage. Some people are even trying to become their own doctors. According to an October 2012 Atlantic article, 97.5 million Americans use the internet each year to try to diagnose a health condition. And while self-diagnosis can have some pretty serious consequences by itself, there are people who are taking this a step further and are actually treating themselves.
A YouTube search for do-it-yourself braces yields thousands of results of tweens trying to fix their crooked teeth using rubber bands and paper clips. And this, as you probably already guessed, is not recommended by orthodontists. We might justify these activities as time and money savers, but they're all just rooted in this expectation of individuality. In the end, we sacrifice our well-being instead of asking the collective for help. But why exactly don't we ask for help? The simple answer is that we're afraid of being hurt. According to a 2016 study done by researchers at UCLA, asking for help can lead to rejection or other social pains. These pains activate the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex just like a headache would. In addition, according to Vanessa Bones, a professor of psychology at Cornell University, people underestimate by around 50% how willing others will be to help them. So we're expecting to be rejected, which we know will cause us pain, so we don't reach out in the first place. This mindset is especially prevalent among those in our communities who are struggling with a mental illness. According to Mental Health America, 50% of people with a mental health condition will not receive professional help. Often this is because sufferers are afraid of being rejected by those they're asking for help. They may fear being told that their symptoms aren't severe enough to require treatment, are simply personal flaws that they need to work on, or that they don't even exist. And this resistance to asking for help can have some pretty serious consequences. Trying to be your own orthodontist will probably end up with your teeth looking worse than when you started. Incorrectly assembled IKEA furniture, or as I like to call it, the only type of IKEA furniture, has been known to hurt young kids. And online classes aren't for everyone. According to a January 2018 New York Times article, underperforming students do significantly worse in these classes than classes where they can have face-to-face interactions with teachers. And perhaps the most serious consequences are faced by those people who are struggling with a mental illness, specifically those that aren't reaching out and getting help. And I know this to be true because it's something that I've struggled with. For most of my life, I've been a happy and content person. But when I began to struggle with my mental health during middle school, it became harder each day for me to walk into school with just a smile on my face. Initially, I refused to admit to anyone that something was wrong. I believed that this was my fault and that I could figure out this mess on my own. But every day that I kept trying to fight by myself, I felt more isolated and hopeless. I needed to ask for help. And it wasn't easy to open up and tell my parents or even my sister what was going on, but it was the best choice that I could have ever made. Yes, asking for help was painful and scary at first, but the support, counseling, and other resources that I got out of the question made the road to recovery a lot smoother. But not all stories about mental illness have a happy ending. One of the main reasons for this is the stigma that still exists in our society around mental health that keeps many people from reaching out because of fear and shame. And sadly, some of us in this room might even know someone who was hospitalized or died by suicide or overdose without us ever having known that something was wrong. But here's the truth. Most people want to help you. Some may claim that asking for help is futile because no one actually wants to be of assistance. But the previously mentioned Vanessa Bones asserts that saying no to someone's request for help actually causes the same social pain that you feel when we're rejected. And people don't want to feel shame or guilt. Instead, they want to feel good about themselves. Still, according to New York Times Smarter Living editor Tim Herrera, there are steps that we can take to ensure that we're asking for help in the best possible way. First, we have to let the person we're asking know that we actually do need assistance. According to Columbia social psychologist Heidi Grant in her book Reinforcements, people don't want to intrude or assume, so they will often wait for someone to ask them for help in case their suspicion was incorrect. This can make things more uncomfortable for the person asking for help, but it does explain why others don't reach out preemptively when we need something. Second, we have to actually ask the question. Let the person know what you need from them. Don't just explain everything that's going wrong. This might make the person feel bad for us, but they won't know what to do to make the situation better. Third, be specific and direct. Let the person know there's a reason you're asking them and not someone else for help. Showing the person the reasoning behind our requests will make them more willing and excited to help us. Finally, we must be considerate about who we ask. We should choose someone who we feel comfortable around, but also who has the time and resources necessary to help us. So don't ask your super busy friend to babysit your 3 hyperactive chihuahuas for the whole week. In the end, asking for help can be beneficial for us too. According to a 2014 Psychology Today article, along with simply lightening our loads, asking for help allows us to learn new skills, strengthen our relationships, and become more effective collaborators. And this tournament today is a great time for us to put some of these ideas into practice. If you're having trouble finding your next room, politely ask a competitor for help locating it. Or if you're tight on time between rounds, politely ask a teammate to grab you a bottle of water. And if you have any questions about what we've discussed today, feel free to talk to me after the round. I'm here to help.
Okay. My name is Angela, and I am doing my teaser and intro to my dramatic piece, and it's called When I See Her by Soo Jin-jin. You hear that? That's the sound that only comes from real crystal glasses. My friend Minji always insists we use these when she comes over, so just give me a moment to clean these up. There. See, Fridays are the days set aside for just Minji and me. She comes over to my house and we hang out for a little while. I tried to call her to see where she was, but she must have lost her phone again. But it's impossible for me to stay mad at Minji. On April 16, 2014, the Seoul, a ferry carrying mostly high school students on a field trip to Jeju, an island off of South Korea's coast, sank, killing about 304 people on board. In her account, based on actual events, Soo Jin-jun introduces us to Sora, a high school student who experiences post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of being on the ferry and surviving. When I See Her by Soo Jin-jun.
Our next speaker is junior Naimu Muhammad, performing her program oral interp entitled Where Are Our Girls?, followed by excerpts from Kaltun Warsame.
You know, where I come from, Marianellas always just go missing. You know, somehow Latoyas are never found. I wish I could say that the whole world is on fire in their honor. You know, streets set ablaze, but it is never the world. The world is too busy responding to Amber Alerts that don't include our own. Meanwhile, our children never make it back. And that never makes the news. Black girls go missing without so much as a whisper of where. There are no Amber Alerts for the amber-skinned girls. The conversation goes as follows. You mean to say it's not the time to focus on race? I say Juliana Otero, Talisha Cole, Deshaun Wallace, Anaya McNeil. The Black and Missing Foundation, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to raising awareness for missing people of color, indicates that nearly 40% of all missing people are Black. There is a clear disparity between who gets media coverage and who doesn't. Having blonde hair and blue eyes seems to be the prerequisite these days. This is not an issue solely for marginalized communities, but an issue for America as a whole. We know better, and I know we can do better. Using the pieces A Poem for Black and Brown Girls Gone Missing by Vanessa Marco, Lost Girls by Ashley August, Black Woman Missing by Alexandria Ellison, the article To Be Young, Missing, and Black, and a police phone interview. Where are our girls? Because the shade of our skin should not cost us our lives. Missing white woman syndrome, a phrase coined by Gwen Ifill, the late PBS News anchor. It refers to the mainstream media's seeming fascination with covering missing or endangered white women like Lacey Peterson or Natalie Holloway, and its seeming disinterest in covering missing people of color. 40% of all missing people are Black. Where the public falls flat is that these missing children are only exposed in the media at a rate of 19%, which begs the question, why are missing Black women and girls largely ignored, and what can be done to change this? I woke up on February 14 of 2000, 5:45 a.m. The alarm clock for my kids went off at 6:30. I went to the bathroom to turn on the bath water for them. You see, they couldn't take a bath the night before because of a power outage. I opened their bedroom door, and my son O'Brien was under the covers. I called out his name, and he jumped up. Then I realized my daughter Asha wasn't in her bed. I was sitting between my aunt's legs as she was pulling a comb through my hair. "Child, if you go missing, no one's gonna look for you," she said. No one looks for the little Black girls. On the TV, there was a girl about my age, shoulder-length blonde hair, and a really nice smile. She went missing. The news lady was asking us to call the police if we had heard anything. I hoped she would make it back home to her mommy safe and sound, but I felt something else too. A deeper, older wound. Something I could sense but couldn't yet touch. I looked beside his bed because sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and lay next to him, you know. She wasn't there. I asked him where she was. He didn't know. I checked the bathroom. I checked the kitchen. I checked downstairs. I checked every room in the house. I promise you. Asha, she wasn't there. And that's when I called the police. The party was dying down. I was walking to the nearest 7-Eleven with my friends, leaving them to choose between Dollar Honey Buns and Sour Patch Kids for $1.75. They were taking too long, so I decided to walk home by myself. I took in a breath of arrogance and released it with my apprehension, remembering my kickboxing lessons on Tuesday and Thursday nights. Drake was bumping in my earbuds when I noticed a white cargo van creepily approaching. I kept my gaze forward, hoping it would drown out the thoughts of what that man might be trying to do. But it was almost impossible to remain unfazed when the van came to a complete halt. The driver rolled down his window as we made eye contact. He cracked a smile. This man wasn't asking me for directions. Why is he getting so close to me? Run! I ran not because I was afraid to end up on the back of a milk carton. I ran because I knew that my brown skin would never end up on the back of a carton of dairy. I told myself to run. Run before I end up like Teresa Bunn, 21, Black. She was seen last November, but perhaps you can't remember because the media completely decided to ignore her disappearance. 10 years later, her mother is left to implore to the nation to help her find the one she adores. I think I got the hint after her body was found strangled, burned beyond recognition, left in a garbage bag on the side of the road. I'm also talking about Black trans women who are existing in a state of emergency. The life expectancy of a Black trans woman is barely at 30. I thought that this was America. Where the hell are we? New York City is a mess. It has many well-kept secrets that haven't been publicized beyond explanation. Like the story of our girls. Our Brooklyn, Bronx City girls that got hip-hop heartbeats that thump like cement blocks, brownstone beautiful right down to the cuticle. In the suburbs of Long Island, 15-year-old Amy Donahue goes missing. In 49 minutes, local FBI agents, police officers, and special investigators scour the whole city and state. They search high and low just to find out she was in her parents' basement. Headphones on and music too loud to hear anyone calling her name. I wish my cousin was just listening to music. I wish she was just sitting over there playing Helen Keller instead of sitting right next to a killer. 19-year-old Black Julianne Palmer left her apartment building sporting sweats and a t-shirt, and she is seen getting got on Malcolm X Boulevard. The police didn't arrive for 9 hours after being harassed, and when they got there, her mother was wailing herself into a river of lost child, and they had the nerve, the audacity to look her right in the eyes and say, "Well, it hasn't been 48 hours yet, ma'am. We really can't do anything about it." Why is it okay for girls who look like me and live like me? For girls who look like me, live like me, and walk like me to go milk carton missing, to get no TV screen time or special investigators to look for them. When women like me are getting taken right off the streets of New York City and no one is doing a damn thing about it. Because the people with the power to change things go, "Well, Linda, she lives in the Bronx. Well, you've seen how those Black and Latina girls dress themselves over there. She must have been asking for it by wearing something tight and raunchy at this young age. We are just trying to find ourselves." Who the hell would ask to go missing? To get snatched up? You think women like me are getting taken and trafficked because of what we wear? We are getting taken, raped, and trafficked because there are takers, and there are rapists, and there are traffickers, and it is not our goddamn faults. And I know you heard about us ethnic girls, right? We just love to twerk and work and party. So when we go missing, why don't you send out a search party? And bring your cop cars and your strobe lights with you. It could be anyone's daughter, girlfriend, wife, aunt. So what happens when the next girl that's gone missing belongs to one of you? Rachel Skidmore, Susanna Sosa, Angel Greenwood, me. Our voices have been silenced for far too long, but I want to know, do you hear me now?
Hi, my name is Kaltoon Orsame, and I'm in the category Program of Oratory Intern, and yeah. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Your neighbors running faster than you. Or the boy you went to school with who kissed you behind the old tin factory is holding a gun bigger than his body. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Unless home chases you to the shore. Fire and defeat, hot blood in your belly. It is not something you ever thought about doing, and so when you did, you carried the anthem under your breath. Somalia tosoy, tosoy skutirsenei, habagir tagterenei, tagero origine. People are fleeing war-torn countries at record levels. 25.4 million refugees, with over half of them being under the age of 18. My aunt wasn't such a refugee, who was one of the lucky few who were allowed to leave, and when I asked her recently to tell me what she remembers, she looked at me and stayed silent. She looked intently at me for 10 minutes, and when she finally found her words, she responded by saying, living was what we feared, rather than death. Under current law, it would have taken my aunt over 15 years to get to the United States. Amithal Mahmoud knows firsthand about genocide. From the sand of Sudan to Yale University, she has used her words and voice to bring awareness to this cause. When home becomes a stranger, a program dedicated to helping all refugees because it is time.
Finally, we have Bhavya Shivaram with her humorous interpretation entitled Flight 212.
Hello, hello, young lady, and welcome to Random Metropolis International Airport. May I take your bag? No, thanks, I've got it. Come on now, I insist. Well, thank you very much, ma'am. Let me just take this bag, which is, it's really not heavy at all. We'll take 2 steps. 1, 2, oh, there we go. Have a nice day, and your tip is very much appreciated. But you made me give you the bag, and then you only carried it for 2 steps. Did I mention I'm also raising money for my niece who has a rare nervous condition? Okay, yes, fine. Here's $1. 2 would be better, but okay. Thank you very much, ma'am, and you have yourself a nice flight. Right. Hi, checking in for flight 212 to Los Angeles, please. 112 leaves in 30 minutes. You'll have to go stand in the special rush line. I said 212. In which case, you're overzealously early. Boarding pass, photo ID, and recent blood sample, please. Blood sample? Just kidding. Ha, ha, ha. Checking any bags today? Just as carry-on. Please make sure your carry-on fits in your allotted onboard luggage space. You're all set. We appreciate your business. Ha, ha. Yeah, I can tell. You meet tons of weird people in life. I know I met a lot when I joined speech. And I keep meeting more weirdos every time I go to a tournament. Sometimes they can be weird and funny, but in stressful situations, such as the airport, they can really be a bother. Flight 212 to LA by Darcy Robb. Flying must have been so different back in the old days, back when it was all Pan Am and movie stars. License, boarding pass, and would you please recite your social security number backwards? Excuse me? Sorry, little TSA humor. We like to keep things light around here. Oh, right, because your job calls for a lot of joking around. Well, who wouldn't want to joke around with the person giving you a full body search? Right, I've often thought of that myself. Well, has anyone attempted to give you anything to bring on your flight today? No. Has your luggage been out of your sight or unattended since you packed it? No. Are you single and ready to mingle? What? TSA humor. Got you again. Please, can I go now? Sure can. Hope to see you before next fall. Flight. Huh. Maybe I should start traveling by boat. Okay. Flying bureaucracy, creepy. TSA agent, that's over with. 2 hours to the flight. Oh, nice big museum to check out. Ooh, lots of magazines. Oh, so sorry, I didn't mean to jostle you there. Oh, it's fine. This place is crowded anyways. Airports can be so stressful, don't you think? They can be a pain. Sometimes it makes you want to put yourself in the mail. I tried that once, but the postal service had me arrested. Oh, yes, such an overreaction. Would you like some medication? I've got Valium, Percocet, Xanax, and I forget what the purple ones are. No, thank you. Anyways, I get a little tense before flying. Are you tense? Well, you can tame it, by doing some deep breathing. Oh. Are you okay? Deep breathing isn't working for me today. Can I hold your hand? That's why I've been called. Nice meeting you. You should really get this much issue of psychology today. It has some wonderful mind over matter suggestions. Walk way fast, walk way fast, walk way fast. Okay. You know what? The universe is sending me a sign. I should catch a tram, find my gate, and be all nice and antisocial till I get to LA. Oh, here's a tram. Marty. We're gonna make history here, Martin. I don't see why you're hesitating over one little environmental regulation law. Excuse me, sir. I don't think we're supposed to be talking on cell phones in the airport tram. Hang on, Marty. What? This is a cell phone free zone. Marty, can we get Chuck on the line? Let's make it a three-way. I'm sorry to insist, but what you're doing could be dangerous. Did you read the sign? The use of cellular telephones on moving tram can interfere with airport navigation. Yeah, of course I can read the sign. But here's the thing, sister. This phone call could change my life and your life and the lives of everyone in this airport. Under those circumstances, I think the sign applies to everyone else's phone calls. Chuck. Dan and Marty here. You're exactly what the rest of the world means by ugly American. Listen, you hippie commie college kid, when you start paying taxes, you'll understand. Yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah, on my way now to the business lounge. On my way now to put a blanket over my head. Seriously, can I run into one more obnoxious weirdo? Excuse me, ma'am. Just here the flight to Las Vegas. I never even should have asked that question out loud. Beg pardon? Nothing. I mean, at least you're nicer than the devil in the Armani suit back there. Ran into a devil in disguise. Did you now? That was pretty good. Sorry, I don't know where the flight to Vegas is. I'm on the 212 to LA. That Marilyn Monroe lives out there in LA, don't you? Me and her are doing a movie together. So, how long have you been doing impersonations? I mean, your outfit is great. It must be a lot of fun to act like Fat Elvis. I'm skinny Elvis. I just happen to like wearing studded jumpsuits. Oh, well, here's my gate. Good luck with Marilyn. Thank you very much. Anyone sitting at this gate is potentially dangerous. Any one of them could corner me on the plane and subject me to their brand of insanity. For 3 hours, I can't handle it. Maybe I'll go hide in the ladies' room. No, that's ridiculous. Unlike anyone else in this airport, these people are acting normal. Hear that? Feet walking, voices chatting, snacks being eaten. The beautiful sound of normal. Oh, it's so quiet in here. I can even hear someone breathing. No. Yes, I thought that was you. No. Yes, and I said to myself, there's a sweet young lady who didn't want any pills at the newsstand. You didn't tell me you were going to LA. There's a lot of gang violence there, you know. Are you on the 212? I don't remember. I bet you are. I'll go right up to the desk and ask them to seat us together. You could help me with my oxygen mask. No, I don't think so. The nerves are finally hitting you, aren't they? That's nothing a little deep breathing can't fix. If not, I've got some Valium left. I can't. You're resisting. My therapist always told me, we must drop our mental resistance. Don't think about crashing. Don't think the innocent passengers screaming for their lives. Don't think of the pain that will fill your lungs as they collapse to lack of... You know what? There's got to be a nice Greyhound bus heading to LA. I'm in bad shape. I've got to get out of here. Attention passengers on flight 212 to LA. Today's flight is overbooked. I repeat, this flight is overbooked. We are looking for volunteers who will give up their seats. Me! Take it, please. Take my seat right now. Wow. Hey, hi-ho there. Look who it is. Remember me from security? I'm working the gate this afternoon to cross-train. How about that? Well, if you're not going on the 212, how about we put you on the 612 and have lots of time together? I can't. I have to take this flight. My sister, she just texted me and she's having a baby right now Oh, bummer. Well, you know, if you want any of my special secret agent perks, you let me know. By any chance, do you have any earplugs? I've got these industrial-sized noise-canceling headphones. Those will work. What did they say, dear? Were you able to get the seats together? You know, I forgot to ask. You'll have to excuse me for the next few hours. It's time for my noise-canceling therapy. Noise cancelling? How interesting. I've had skull alignment therapy and rebirthing therapy and bioscreen therapy, never noise cancelling. That reminds me of. Not bad. 3 more hours.
Thank you for coming to tonight's speech showcase. We hope you enjoyed the performances and to see you again next year.